thing, but you guys that have been members for a long time know I like to do this sometimes. Of course, after we run this live stuff, I always flip it to members only, and then I have that playlist that's members only videos. And because obviously I want to give you guys as much content as I possibly can, and the only way I can do it with all the time that you have in a day with the work that we have is to pop up when I'm working on stuff. So I hope you guys don't mind that too much. So let me know how the audio is, because I am out in the shop and not on the machine shop side. You know, we've got two sides over there for the machine shop, and the other bike builds and stuff are going. And then we have this side where all the major work is done, and guys over there working away. Carrie, glad you can make it. So what I thought I would do today is kind of give you guys an overview of tuning, right? Just a quick overview. Hey, Brian, good to see you, pal. Glad you made it. A quick overview on the tuning process. Hey, Jay, glad you made it, sir. Glad to see you. So again, tuning, and I know you guys may have seen some of my videos. You know, Dyno Secrets Exposed was one that I did. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Dyno Secrets Exposed was one. Street tuning versus dyno tuning, etc., etc. So I've done a bunch of videos on this stuff, and then I did another one on, I think it was the 3 major types of fuel injection systems. You know, piggyback systems, ECM replacements, and then also flash tuning systems, and described each of those. So if you haven't watched those, maybe jump back and it'll give you a little bit more of an overview. Let's see who all we've got here. How's the audio? I think the video is good. I did get a new phone, so I'm going to be doing a lot more of this stuff from my phone. So hey, Jay said hey, and Mike, good to go. All right, so the bike that we're going to be tuning today, again, I'm going to give you guys an overview. I don't know if we're going to do the entire process because it's going to be lengthy. It's going to take several hours. Let's see, Jay says, my bike's actually at the dyno tuner right now. Sorted out correct. I know I'm going to mispronounce your name, K-J-E-T-I-L. I apologize. Hello, glad you made it. We finally got good weather here. The rain are coming up a little bit, allowing, and we were able with all the, so we've got several bikes delivered, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more get ready to go. Just got to get them tuned. So that being said, the bike we're going to be doing belongs to Michael, and it is a 2007 Electric Glide. It started out as a 110 CVO, and it is, we went all the way through. We put a DD7 transmission in it. We, trained everything, did a ton of head work to it, and all that. So it's now 117 at 10.5 to 1. And he, it's a power, obviously we're doing this video, Power Vision here. I'm not sure, Jay. It looks okay on my end, but if anybody else could comment and let me know if it's buffering for you as well. I don't want to get started until I know I've got a good and all that great, but I think I can switch it without interrupting the feed. So if anybody else, Mike, you're seeing it buffering too. Okay. Hang on just a second, guys. Let me see if I can fix this. I should reconnect. How's that? Are we any better? I think we lost some folks. All right, I'll give you guys a second. Is that better? Better? Perfect? Much better. Okay. I just switched it off the Wi-Fi, and fortunately with this new phone, I can get 5G now. Isn't that great? And we'll just use data minutes. I don't care. So, did everybody catch everything with what we're tuning and what we're doing now? I'll mention it real quick. It's, again, 2017 Electric Glide. It was a CVO, head work. It's a 110. Hey, Larry, good to see you, pal, and all that. So basically, there's a lot of, hey, Rich, good to see you. There's a lot of misunderstanding about tuning, and reality is there's a lot of value to tuning. The truth is every bike is a bit different. Now, that largely depends on the components that go in it, but like, for example, I can take 2 fuel injectors out of the same bike and have them tested and see as much as a 10-15% variance in flow rates on brand new injectors. Pretty crazy. Now, our injectors, we do have them tested and they are blueprinted, so we know they're flow matched. But again, you still have mild variances in components and things, if anything you guys have seen that. The other benefit to tuning is that, we got bikes in here from states all over the country and other countries. So when I tune these bikes, a large part of that is the experience of where that individual lives. That's the other reason when we do these custom builds, I ask all these questions about how you ride, your weight, passenger weight, how you're going to use the bike, fuel octanes, all of those things will determine how I choose to tune the bike so that it will be as close to perfect as it'll be when you get it home. The other thing, fuel blends are different. So when you're dealing with, emailed maps and things like that, or canned maps, there is a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of fudge factor, if you will, built into those because they don't necessarily always know where they're going. So I'm going to show you guys a few things and some tips and stuff. Now, the way that we're going to tune it is the way that I love to tune motorcycles because I get to see and experience and feel what that bike is truly doing on the road. That's number one. Number two, it gives me an opportunity to very rapidly, quickly break this engine in on the road under various different conditions and see what it's actually doing. Make adjustments while I'm test riding, while I'm breaking it in. So I find this is a very good way to do it. The biggest is that, again, I get to see exactly what it's doing on the road. So we're recording engine data at the same time that we're recording air fuel data, and then the software overlaps it. Now, it has gotten a lot easier over the years as technology has improved. I used to have to do that, and I'll show you some of the things in my tuning cart, the way that we've done it over the years. Let's see who all's here. Ken, good to see you, buddy. Your bike is sitting right next to this one. So I've got Mike's to get done, and then we're going to be jumping back on yours, Ken, and it'll be ready for you to pick up here very soon, which you know when you're coming to get it anyway. So if you guys want a little bit of a history lesson, I can go, if I go all the way to the bottom drawer of my toolbox, we can go all the way back to when I was using, keep in mind, I've been doing this stuff since fuel injection hit on Harleys. So we can go all the way back to these kind of cables, serial bus cables. And this was actually used in conjunction with a Palm Pilot. You remember Palm Pilots? Yeah. And I'm sure I have a Palm Pilot in here somewhere. So you get to that stuff. Well, then, I started with Twin Tech a few years after that. Hey, Jekyll, good to see you, sir. And we developed other data acquisition equipment. Things like, bear with me just a second. Things like this, the Twin Scan. And then in conjunction with the Twin Scan, you would use the same, now this is a key point, the same wideband Bosch LSU sensors that are actually in dynos. All right, wideband sensors. They can go from 10 to 1 to 20 to 1, basically. So these are the same sensors that are used in dynos. Now, before that, using sensors, we were using 4-gas analyzers. That's a whole different animal there. Well, then in conjunction with that, you had other data acquisition things like this, the WeGo, all these cables and such. The idea being we wanted to record actual ECM data, record actual AFR data, and be able to overlap it. Well, over the years, that technology kind of got adopted by a lot of different companies, and that's really where the Power Vision and the AutoTune and the AutoTune module for the Power Vision, as well as the Target Tune module, came to be. Well, then of course it moved into Bluetooth capability with Twin Tech, and then of course I could keep digging and digging and digging. There's all kinds of stuff in here. So the way that we're tuning this one, and it is very effective, it's very efficient, and again, a way for me to collect all this data. So we're tuning both Ken's, yours is being done exactly the same way, and also Michael's here. We're tuning it with the Power Vision, and we have our own wideband sensors and AutoTune module. We connect that to the bike, and we data log. We go out for a quick 2 or 3 minute ride, real short. I want to, again, new engine. I want to get this air fuel in, and we're not going to take it over about 2,500 to 3,000 RPM, and we're just going to go to the end of the block and back. I want to make some quick, rapid adjustments to get it close. We're going to go out again, confirm that. I want to get that air fuel dialed in as quickly as I possibly can during this first critical 30, 35 miles, right? Well, once we get that low RPM, we're going to step it up 500 to 1,000 RPM. A couple of blips through that, get some data recording, come back, adjust it, repeat, keep doing that until we get to the point we're spot on all the way up to red line. And then we're going to repeat that over and over again to take as many data samples as we can. All right. So then the next thing we're going to do is let the bike sit overnight, cool down, because I want to see what it's going to do in a cold start. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do several data acquisitions, overlay that software, correct the numbers. And once we get the corrections done, that's the big key. And I'm going to show you, overview a couple of things here. Once we get the volumetric efficiency to match the air fuel ratio command, right? That means we're basically calibrated at that point. From there is then when we start, that's when we start playing with the actual command air fuel ratios and the ignition timing. We'll make an adjustment to see the best performance. And what I'm looking for is acceleration, and that it's basically acceleration is what I'm after, right? I'm looking at distance and time, and also evaluating engine temperature, looking at spark plugs. All right, we'll get that air fuel to where the engine's happy. Then we go into the timing. We start looking for what's called maximum brake torque, and that is typically the point of detonation minus 3 to 5 degrees, sometimes a little more, depending on where the bike will live most of its life, fuel octane, weight of the rider, etc. So point of detonation minus roughly 3 to 5 degrees, give or take. Once you dial that in, you've got no detonation, no ping. You analyze the spark plugs. You look at cylinder head temperature. You go out and do it again, and you keep making adjustments like that. So look at it in terms of having a big pie. You split it in half, fourths, eighths, sixteenths, 30 seconds. You keep trimming it down until you basically get it perfect. We then let it sit overnight again and take it out for a few more test rides, put our final tune into it, record that, go for a few more test rides. By then, we've got 35, 40 miles on it. We're very well broken in, not completing the entire break-in, of course, and full ring seal. But we're at a pretty good point there that the bike's okay to be ridden. All right, so that's kind of a brief overview. Let me check for chat real quick. All right, so we're going to keep going. So I already have the equipment installed on the bike. I have already pulled the map out of the bike. Now, there's two ways you can do it. If it's a virgin install, you can connect your new PowerVision to the bike, pull the stock file from the ECM, save a copy of it, and then pull that into your software. All right, that's one way to do it. The other way is to go into the PowerVision website and download a map. There's a problem with that, though. They constantly make updates to the PowerVision, right? Either firmware or software. So all too often, sometimes when you pull a map, especially if it's an older bike, you pull a map from the PowerVision website, it won't load into the PowerVision. It'll tell you that it's an incompatible file, all right? So what I prefer to do to make sure that I have a compatible file and I'm not going to have any transfer issues or anything, I always like to pull that stock file out of the bike and start with that one. Let's see, we got a question for Mike here. I'm thinking about having you add the fan-assisted oil cooler while you're doing the build on the bike. Would that affect the tune drastically if I decided to add it later? No, sir, it wouldn't. It wouldn't at all. No, you'd be perfectly fine because that cooler is only going to kick on when the engine starts getting really hot. So you would be fine to add it later if you decided to. That's exactly right, Jay. So let me think of how I can do this. I want you guys to look over my shoulder. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get the camera down here. Well, it's going to be reversed, guys, and there's not much that I can do about that, unfortunately. I don't think this camera will let me reverse it. Let me try something here. Let's see. There we go. Let's see. Hey, now it's not reversed. I can't see you, but you'll be able to see my screen, right? All right. So, as I said, most of you have seen, you can just go on here, select your year, and do all this type of stuff, but we're going to bypass that. We're not going to worry about that. All right, so what I've done here, the map that we're starting with, you'll notice it, well, you might not be able to see it. It says untitled up here. This is, in fact, the original file that was in his bike. I'm going to be changing a lot of stuff in this. We're not technically going to start with the tune that's already in it. So one thing that we're going to take a look at is the air fuel ratio that's programmed in by the hey, look at that, Mike just popped in. This is your bike. Yeah, so we're starting the tuning process here and about ready to have you roll. So let's see, there we go. Matter of fact, you can see the front of it right there, and right over there is Ken's bike getting ready to go, and that's one for the dealership. Yeah, that's your old man's bike. Yes. All right. So there's some air fuel ratio values in here that we're definitely going to be changing. You can't really start with this tune, right? I know it's not really going to be appropriate for the build, but again, we're looking at all the background stuff that matters. So we're going to be changing quite a few things in here. Let me put my glasses on. So we're going to be changing VE tables here. We're going to be changing air fuel ratios. We're going to be changing ignition timing. RPMs, we're also going to be changing gear ratios because we did put in the DD7. We're going to be changing the closed loop ranges and limits. We're going to be changing all of our ignition tables and everything else. But for time's sake, if you were to start and absolutely start tuning from scratch, reality is it could take hours and hours upon hours to truly start from scratch. Now, I've built similar engine combinations over the years, and so I'll show you guys. I have literally about a little over 2,000 maps and of various combinations. And what I've determined is to get us just a step closer for efficiency's sake. I know what a good air fuel ratio table is for the cam combination in this one. I know a pretty good starting point for ignition timing. So what I'm going to do is refer to a similar tune that I may have done some time back, right? So I'm going to find the one, and believe it or not, if you guys are kind of doing the same and you're looking for a map that's close, it's the engine size does play a factor, and so does injector size, but one of the biggest things that tends to make a difference in the tune, yes, exhaust does, but cam choice and compression ratio makes a pretty massive difference. So if you're looking for similar maps, those are kind of the things to pay attention to. So let's take a look at some of the tuning files that I've tuned in the past. And what I'm going to start with is I want to look and see 2007 2008 models, give or take. This is only you can see me scrolling here, a very small portion of all the tuning files that I have from previous bikes. So, I'm just going to start and look for, say, any 117s that I've done in the past and look for something similar. There's a few M8s in here. There's one from an 09. His wasn't a CVO. I know the heads are drastically different. And I've got a bunch of other 117s in here. So I tell you what, we're just going to start with one that I think is going to be a good base for it, from an 09 bike that I did. And what I want to start with, we want to see all the differences, right? We want to see how different his starting map is versus one that I've tuned in the past. So we're going to load that compare file up here, and let me see if I can find it. We're going to pop in right here. Yeah, this was an 09 Street Glide. It was a 117, not a CVO, but he was running a D&D billet cat on it. And we're going to start with that one. Now, if you look over here to the right, you see all of these, all of the triangles, right? With a big exclamation point. That means that there's something in there that is different. All right, so obviously we'll just do a quick overview on this stuff. Yes, the calibration ID is going to be different. The description is going to be different. Lambda based, this, let me look. Let's see, 09. We're running. His had the large O2 sensors in it, correct, Guy?
Yes, sir.
The factory ones? Okay.
2-wire O2s.
So his is the 2-wire O2, the large one, the 18 millimeter ones. His is going to be AFR based, not Lambda based. So of course, we're going to see a difference there. We can bypass all that. So a lot of these triangles that you see here don't really apply. All right, active exhaust doesn't apply. IC crank steps will, but we're going to get to that in a minute. All right. One of the things we do know how efficient this engine is. So you'll notice here it shows on the previous file that I did, both bikes had the same. Let's double check and see what my injector size was. So, all right, now you'll notice here 4 gram per second on the file on the previous bike I tuned. This one shows 3.91. Which this bike would have originally had a 4.35 injector in it. The reason this number is lower is because it gives you more room in the VE table. It's a little inside trick to open that up. Now, one issue with that is you can very well exceed the duty cycle of an injector. Ideally, you want an injector to have a duty cycle of around 85%. Oftentimes when you have to drastically increase engine displacement or drastically decrease the programmed injector value, that means that your injector is getting well beyond its duty cycle. So that's when you would run some tests, look at duty cycle, just to keep the injector healthy. Now, in this bike, I know that because of how efficient the heads are in his build, we're going to be setting this. We do have 6 gram we have 6 gram injectors in it, which is enough for the bike, but I'm going to step this down just a little bit just to give us more room to allow more tuning in the VE table. So I'm going to set that at 5.5, even though it has a 6 gram per second injector in it. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is go to the engine displacement. All right, and again, it's a 117, but I want to give just a little bit more room in the tuning. So where it was using a 114, again, the previous tuner put that in to give a little more room. So we're going to change this to 120, even though it's a 117. Now, that being said, if you make a change to the engine displacement or you make a change to the injector size, it is a global change. You are changing every fuel-related value in this entire map. So you have to be careful doing that, and you want to do that first. If you start the tuning process and you find that you can't achieve a certain AFR or the duty cycle's too high, you go back in, you have to either raise the displacement, reduce the injector size in the software, or increase the injector size on the bike, depending on how bad it is. Now, when you do any of those 3 things, you have to completely start over, right? So that's an interesting little tidbit of information for you guys. All right, so we've changed engine displacement. We're going to leave IC and everything where it was on his original map for now. The VE tables we know are going to change. They're going to change drastically. That is the tuning process. We've changed injector size, so we're going to leave all of that there. Now we're going to hop into the fuel, right? Well, let's see. We got injector size. We already did. Now we're going to look at our air fuel ratio command. All right, 09. Come to think of it, let's see. 09 was lambda based on that previous map, so we're not going to use that. We'll just have to create our own AFR table, which you guys will get a kick out of that, I think. And show you just kind of some good values to start with. A lot of times that's what everybody needs, or just values to start. All right, one thing I want to do is I want to see what I can do here with, I know I'm going to have to change gear ratios. I'll do that in a little bit. because we did do the DD7. Let's take a look at engine temperature management system. We're going to leave that off. We've got closed loop active, RPM limit. There's no need for him to go to 6,200 RPM because this is a low to mid-range torque engine. I'm going to set it at 6,200. We may dial that back down a little bit, but that's where we're going to put it for now. Because I want to tune in that area, honestly. And in the event he decides he's not going to go that deep into it, then we'll dial it back a little bit. I'm going to take a quick look at Spark Advance. And let's see what our difference is on my other file. Now, you're going to notice a big difference here. I don't know if you guys can see the values. I'll give you a general overview. So, let's start with this stock one. This is basically an absolutely stock ignition table. So we've got an idle range. If we look up here in that, let's say 750 to 1250, from 20 to 50 kPa. In that range right here, that's your idle range, okay? From, cold start and also hot idle is in that range. Now, when you're cruising, most people, you're at roughly 2,000 to say 3,000 RPM. Is what I call cruising range, up to around 60 to 70 kPa, depending on a person's weight, the weight of the bike, the use, and all that. So kPa, you have to look at that. It's kilopascals. It's the metric version of inches of mercury. It's not technically, it's not throttle position. It is engine load. All right, that's a critical part. Many people misunderstand. They see 100 kPa, they think that's 100% throttle. If you're at 2,000 RPM and you wag it to 100% throttle, the load can be over here. But also, if you're, say, in 6th gear, running at 2,000, 2,500 RPM, that's an excessive amount of load. So you can start dancing over here in this 80 to 90 load range, kPa, even though you're only at 15, 20% throttle, right? That's the reason why sometimes if you shift into 6th too early at low RPM, put extra load on it, your fuel mileage is worse, right? All right, well then, when you start doing heavy roll-ons, you start getting into this area right here, 3,000, 3,500 RPM. Your heavy roll-ons around 70, 80, 90 kPa is this part of the map here. And then when you're at wide open throttle, of course, you're between 90 and 100 kPa at your given RPM. So the reason I tell you all of that is if you were to draw a diagonal line across this map, and this also applies with the ignition table. And if you were to draw a diagonal line, across this table like this, basically this wide, that's where people ride, all right? That's where your bike operates. So a lot of times people on dynos will take bikes and put an excessive amount of load on them at very low RPMs just for the sake of filling up these areas right here, right? Now, to be able to hit these areas under riding conditions on the road, you would have to do something like be in 3rd gear at 1,500 RPM and stabbing the brake, trying to stop the bike. Well, nobody rides that way. So, you're beating the bike to death, low RPM, and all that stuff for the sake of tuning in an area of the map that the bike would never see under any reasonable operating conditions, all right? Also, the same applies down here. If you notice, you've got some Spark Advance down here in the 45, 46 range, right? And these are very low load, very high RPM. So in order for you to see 20, 30, 40 kPa, you would have to have the bike sitting in neutral on the ground and have this thing up at 4,000 RPM. Again, this area, nobody rides there. So a lot of time typically is spent trying to fill up this area that you almost never hit. So again, this is the advanced table, and the same applies to the AFR command table, and we're going to adjust that in a minute. And you'll see that there's a slight difference between front and rear. Now, if you look at my table, it is drastically different. And we can look at the delta here. You can see that I have several degrees less timing at full load, -5, -9, -6. I've pulled a lot of timing out there. It's higher compression with the performance cam and all this stuff. We don't need that much timing up there. We want to keep it from having detonation issues. The other is the difference in over here at idle, right? So because the difference in the engine and everything else, I've got about 5 degrees more advance in it at idle than what it does in this configuration. It's a lot more efficient, right? And then we're relatively close right in the middle, but there's a big differences here in this area here where I actually retarded timing quite a bit. We want to keep it from having detonation issues. So the fellow that owns it, he's an older gentleman. I know he's not going to be beating this thing to death, but there is an off chance that he could be, you know, lugging it a little bit, you know, some lower RPMs, that sort of thing. So, you know, in this cruising range around town, 3,000 RPM, 2,500 RPM, I've pulled a little bit more timing out here to help keep the engine cooler, is the bottom line. So you've got, yes, air cools these engines, but timing and fuel also cools them too. If we can take control of fuel and timing, use that to reduce engine heat, we're just going to have an engine that lasts a lot longer. So one of the things I'm going to do here, I know the differences. I'm going to take and put a bit more advance in it. And it's a pretty simple thing to do because I know I had spent hours and hours on that other ignition table developing it. So I'm going to move this ignition table over as a good starting point to tune this one. So we're going to do the same for front and rear. And we're going to pull that one over. All right, that gives us a really good starting point. All right, now, let's see. We've got, I want to make sure that my knock detection, you will probably hear from others that they turn knock detection off while they're tuning. I actually prefer to leave knock retard, adaptive knock retard turned on, because if you leave it turned on, the ECM will report that it had to retard timing to prevent detonation. So if the ECM is triggering that, I get the data log of that, and I get to see where that's happening so that I can make adjustments in my ignition table if I need to. So I always leave knock retard on, and then we'll apply the maximum values that I want it to retard and that sort of thing. So we've handled the spark. Now let's look at closed loop. We're going to adjust that. I am going to adjust the gear ratios. Let me see what differences we have here. All right, let's see. All right, I'm going to have to refer to my notes. I don't remember the exact ratios. I'll have to get my notes on that and do that later. I can show you guys that later. All right, so before I go into the air-fuel ratio stuff, I think we've pretty much covered anything that I need to refer to from this other file for us to get started. So actually, you know what? I am going to pull, I'm not even going to pay attention to VE tables because we're going to be so vastly different with everything. Let's go ahead and close that compare file, and we're going to jump back to our air-fuel ratio. And we're going to look at this in stoichiometric, and then we're going to develop our own air-fuel table based on what values I think are going to be pretty healthy. So let's split the camera here for a second. And before we do that, you guys got any questions? Let's see. Halloween special treat. Oh, special suite. That's your old man's bike. The Halloween special. All right, we're rocking and rolling. I'm going to give you guys a second to ask any questions if you have any. Nope, are none? All right, let's keep rolling then. Oh, that's good to hear, Mike. I'm glad, man. It's been, I know we've done a lot of other stuff. I got to tell you, the seat on this thing looks awesome. Golly, the seat is killer. Just, I love it, love it. The build's going to be awesome. This bike, how it's come together, man, it's just been fantastic. So I'm anxious to get out on the road too. All right, cool. Let's flip the camera and let's keep going. And I'm going to give you guys an idea of kind of how we're going to set up this table. All right, now this is Since Michael, since your dad's going to have his own power vision here, I want you to understand how I'm adjusting this and why. Talk about the heads a bit. Yeah, sure. They started life as CVO 110 heads, and there was some porting work done. Of course, valves, springs, seats, guides, everything in the heads gone through 100%. And the big idea was not making real radical changes because the 110 heads already have relatively big ports. They already have relatively big valves. So what we need to do is trim things a bit and reshape ports, choose the right cam, all that collectively to try to get that low to mid-range torque. Can you, let's see, Larry, did Hall Bikes pick up my bike yet? I don't believe so. Hang on, let me ask Guy. Hey, Guy.
Sure.
Larry Daughtry's bike is Hall Bikes. Hall Bikes was supposed to pick it up last week.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is, Larry. They were supposed to pick it up last week. They didn't show up, but I know there was a variable date, I believe, when you would set it up with them to come and get it. I need to find out, we're closed on Sundays and Mondays, of course, but Jason's dad, say little prayers, guys. Jason's dad had a heart attack. So he's at the hospital and, needless to say, running a little short-handed. So I believe he's talked to him. We just don't know how they changed the date. So anyway, or changed the pickup date. But they know our hours. We've talked to them. They should be here soon. So, all right, let's get back to it. Let me flip this, and there we go. So it's a good thing you're on here, Mike, because a lot of the things I'm going to show you. Hey, Mr. Richardson, how are you, sir? What I'm going to show you here, Mike, you may be able to make this change after your dad gets some miles on it and figure out what his fuel economy is and just trim a few things. There would be really no reason to change anything else in these tables once I get done. So we're just looking at a bit of a fuel economy thing based on his riding style. So again, this is the air-fuel ratio table. And if you were working on a bike that was later using lambda sensors, the values, instead of being actual air-fuel ratio values like these, the values are going to look like that. Those are lambda numbers. You can tune with lambda if you understand it. I understand lambda, but sometimes it's a little easier to refer to it in air-fuel ratio. So you can click that button up there and that checkbox, and it'll put you back at air-fuel ratio. So very much like the ignition table that I described, the air-fuel table follows the exact same pattern. Up here, roughly 750 to 1250 RPM from around 27 kPa to about 50 kPa. This is your idle range. And then once you come out of the clutch, you've just got to transfer here until you hit about 2000 RPM. And most people ride from 2000 to 3000 RPM. And under those situations, you're going to be roughly at 27 to 30 kPa up to about 60, maybe 70. All right, this is your range, your steady state cruise. Now, when you start getting into 60, 70, 80, this is where a lot of the fuel economy issues come from based on riding styles, location, weight of bike, passenger, all that type of stuff, and even the speed that you're running. Right, the actual vehicle speed and the gear ratio that you like to ride in. So if you like to ride in 6th gear at a very low RPM, your load is going to be up here. So in other words, you're going to be tapping a portion of the map where your air-fuel ratio is richer. You're not going to see as good a fuel economy. So depending on the different person's riding style, I would put in different values here at this 60, 70, 80 range, right? So again, this is a lot of the reason why if a person can hold off until they hit about, running, say, 70 miles an hour, switching to 6th gear, in this case 7th, it's going to put you down to 2750, give or take, 2500. So once you make that shift and a higher speed, higher RPM, you're going to be back in this 50, 60, 70, not up here in this 70, 80 to 85. I hope that makes sense for everybody. And again, this area down here, you almost never see. This area up here, you virtually never see. And this 80 is heavy roll on. You start getting into 90, 95, and 100. That typically is your extreme load conditions or wide open throttle. All right, we got any questions there? Thanks, guys, for thoughts for Jason's dad there. Hope from what I understand, he had 80 and 90% blockage. They're gonna do stints tomorrow and see how that works for him. But as it stands right now, he's doing okay and resting. All right, so let me get a little sip of something to drink. So the whole purpose of this video, because I want to get started and actually get this thing tuned before I run out of day and time. So again, starting points. I'd mentioned starting points on the timing for you guys. So what I'm going to do here, say in that 750 to 1250 range, 20 to say 50 kPa, I want to set this at 13.8. All right, that's going to give me a pretty good idle. It's going to help keep it cool in traffic and that sort of thing. Oh, numbers didn't change. Let me do that again. Why my numbers aren't changing universally. So let's do that again. 13.8. Not all changing like they should. I don't want to. Let's see. All right, this is getting annoying. What the hell? I'm going to have to key them all in individually. It's not letting me copy them for whatever reason. Let's just do it this way. Now it's changing them. That's weird. Gotta love software glitches. All right, now, next part here, we're gonna look at our cruising range. All right, so again, I'd mentioned, roughly around, excuse me, 1750, 2000 RPM, let's say to 3000 RPM, and then we're going to roll across to 60 kPa. All right, I'm going to set this at 14.4. All right, because typically at those speeds, he's just going to be cruising nice and easy along the interstate there. And on some bikes, I'll take at 3000 RPM here, and I'll actually reduce that to a 14.1. But he's going to be doing some highway miles on this thing, so that should preserve a bit of fuel economy for him. And over here in the 70 kPa range, let's set this at say a 14.1 here, and then we'll stretch it out a little further. Say in the 80, we're going to go to a 13.8. Actually, let's go here. Let's go to a 13.6. All right, and then we're going to blend this down here. We'll go a 13.2. All right, and then at 90, I'm going to take this to a 12.8, and we're going to carry this 12.8 all the way out to full throttle, or maximum load at 12.8. All right, now what our job to do here is just blend everything down. All right, so we're going to go 12.8 all the way down, 12.8, 12.8. Now remember, that's a 95 kPa break point. You'll go across 90, 95, and 100 so dang fast, it's ridiculous. So all those having the same value, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right, so we'll hit this spot right here at 13.8. We're just going to smooth everything out, and we're going to bring it here to 13.8 and 13.4, and just kind of blend everything out from there. Now another thing I want to do is this 20 kPa range right here. Typically that is only during decel. If I run it this rich during decel with a wide open exhaust, it's running at 13:1, we're going to get quite a bit of decel pop. All right, so I'm going to take my entire 27 kPa column and I'm going to copy that over to my 20 kPa column. All right, so that will get us, we should not have any decel pop issues in this right here. We got 13.8. We're going to bring this area down here. Let's take this to a 13.8. Actually, excuse me. Let's bring this down to a 13.4 in the 70 column. Then we can go to a 13.6 here. And as you can tell, what we're doing here is just blending things out a bit. All right, we've got a pretty big jump here in this corner from a 13.6, 13.8, 13 right there. I'm going to blend that down to a 13.2. And that pretty much rounds out our table. This is a fantastic starting point. Now, let me flip the camera. All right. Now, let's see if you guys have any questions. Damn computers, thanks for nope, drawing it out. Jason, that. Okay, perfect. So the idea with this, Mike, since you're watching for your dad here, that area, that 60, 70, 80 kPa range, you need to let him ride the thing, you know, and let's see, you know, once he gets it back, you should be, a healthy tune should provide between 38 and 42 miles to a gallon in that range. If you're getting drastically more than that, like 48 or 50 plus, then you're either an exceptionally conservative rider, riding in ideal conditions, and you weigh next to nothing to be able to produce, and you virtually put no load on the bike. You've optimized your gear ratio or your RPM gear changes, all those types of things. If you're able to achieve that much fuel economy, 48, 50 plus, that's a pretty darn good indication that it's actually running a bit too lean. You would probably find that in that scenario, engine temperatures are elevated a bit, right? So on the flip side of that, if you're seeing 32, 34, you want to look at your riding style. Make sure that you're not overloading it, making gear changes way too early in very low RPM ranges, or on the other side of that, riding the living fool out of it, right? That's the other thing that will reduce it. Also riding at higher elevated speeds. You know, if you're running 80, 85 miles an hour on the interstate, you will see 5 to 7 miles to gallon less than you would see at, say, 60 to 65, just because the wind coefficient on the front fairing, right? It's a lot of load on the bike. There again, we're getting further into that KPA range at a given RPM. So if you find, after he's been riding it for a while, fuel mileage isn't all that great, you won't have to make any other changes because everything will be calibrated, and that's what tuning is about. From there, you can make these little tweaks and adjustments in that range to get it ideal for that person's riding style. All right, fair enough. Does anybody have any questions? Guys, I'm going to have to go do some test rides, get this thing broken in so he can come and pick it up. We're almost done. After his, we're jumping on Ken's. We've got that. We've got Steven. I don't know if Steven's still in here or not. Your engine's over there. It's been built for a while, quite a while. We've got to get that in the bike, and you and I have that other conversation about a couple other things that we were talking about so we can get that engine in the bike. It's sitting over there on my table for a long time, actually. We got to get you wrapped up. And then we got a whole other line, a whole bunch of engines to build and bikes coming apart and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's where we're at. You guys got any questions? I'm not sure how many folks hung out with us. Guys, thanks a million again for being members. Thanks for supporting the channel, helping me feed my family. It's helping all of us around here. It's absolutely wonderful, and I can't thank you enough for that. It means a great deal. So hope to have some more stuff like this coming for you guys really soon. Any other questions? Let's see. Kelly Goldens. Where are we at on Kelly?
Which one's that?
On Kelly Goldwins?
Oh, gold.
His is, let me see. We got bikes all over the place around here.
No, I've seen it.
I need to find out. My brain's all over the place, Kelly. I'll find out and let you know, bud. Well, let me see. No, it's all right, God. Don't worry about it. Kelly, I will look into it and find out. Because I've got machine shop stuff to do too. So get these tuned, get them out, then I'm back on that and doing builds again. So I'll let you know. I'll give you a call. It'll either be this afternoon or tomorrow morning. And I'll let you know exactly where we're at. With Jason being out, it's hard for me to keep up. You know, it's kind of funny. I just tell him just to point and tell me what to do when I walk in the door. So he kind of sets my schedule for me. It's actually a big help when you've got, let's just be honest, a ton of stuff going on. So anyway, guys, I'll let you know, Kelly. Anybody has any questions, please let me know before I bounce out of here. And I'm going to go get this bike tuned and get rocking and rolling. Just trying to balance and juggle the time, guys. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate you very much. Guy's still looking. I'll let you know. Just in time, there's the air compressor. That's my cue. All right, guys, thanks a million. I appreciate y'all very much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves and each other. Have a good one.